So welcome everybody. My name is Joy Rosenthal and I'm on the board of One Breath Rising, and we are just finishing our fifth season. I think it's our fifth or maybe sixth. Um, and we're closing out with our dear friend and colleague Robert Gibbons. And so just a couple of things before we get started. One is I'm going to pin Robert's video, and so um, my suggestion is that you put it on speaker view. We're recording this, so if you don't want your face to be seen, then don't be shy. I mean, it's fine, of course, to turn off your video, and you can rename yourself if you want. And we ask for a donation. Of course, it's all on the honor system, but if you can, I'll put the link in the chat. But you can come to onebreathrising.org and be sure to join our mailing list so that you can hear about more things like this to come. So we're thrilled that you're here, and I think more people will usually join us as we go along. And we're very grateful to you, Robert, for agreeing to do this reading, and so welcome.
Thank you, One Breath Rising. Thank you, Joy and EJ and everybody that's connected, all the wonderful people that I know. Thank you, Amy, and thank you to my friends that have come tonight and the ones that will come. I'm just so grateful. So I'm just amazed at how things have turned out. And so I'm just going to move right along into the reading. I have been thinking about my life and what I have written in response to Zora Neale Hurston. And so some of this work reflects the folkloric part of Zora, some of the nature background, my obsession with nature, and some of those things. This is for Rumi. For Rumi. When one travels from the inner soul, the landscape, water lets energy come in. It's all and forever alive. Let's open the book and let's see. Read the book. Open the book. Change the words to understand. Those are Rumi's words. Those are Rumi's words. My words combined with his words, Rumi. Energy for the dying and even for the dead. The rites of passage is to be born, to live and then die. The dying and the dead will always stay alive. Water is for the living. Water is for the thirsty. Water is for the hungry. Water, let water faucet this water, this energy from the bottom of our wells, from our living wells, become souls, become voice for articulation, for conversation. We do this in philosophy. We do this when we drink music. We do this when we drink words. 149 words. These words. How dare you ask me to condense my words? I live in Rumi. I live in Rumi because Rumi becomes a water wheel, a grist wheel, a stream, a fountain, a water wheel, a faucet, a hovel of water coagulates in me. It gurgles, it churs, this water churs. It becomes a water wheel to associate with water, to disassociate with water, with hydrogen and oxygen, with participation, with precipitation. I can't write without water. I can't write without water because water hydrates. It permeates the atmosphere. Water with sound. Let it bead my back. Let it find the chafe wind. I want to become a water wheel, says Rumi. Let's wave to the water. Let's save the water. Water is our body politic. Dead sea. Dead sea. 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 me to become a water wheel. Let's see what happens. Something about water. If it wasn't without water, it wouldn't exist. Ah, to the water. Ah, to the dewdrop. To the dewdrop. Only a few stop. Only a few stop. What would I call myself? What would I call myself? And it's almost July. Certainly not Juneteenth, maybe manumission or emancipation. I want to be free of name and of social security number, background, or a previous economic condition. Call me undone. Call me untitled. Call me Aunt G's quilt. Call me Aunt Bay that lived in the sugar cane. Call me a rift between North and South. Call me a carpetbagger with wanderlust. Just a trail with many borders, just a folk tale, a folk tale with many borders, a word association. Call me a green awning. Call me a green awning. Yes, not an antique without shutter or a fish that wish I could be a drum. Yes, call me a drum of acceptance, a swarm of flies, people on the other side of the Nile river. I'd rather be an oracle or an amulet. Yes, call me a proverb or a psalm. Call me a lamentation. Call me a out of fashion. Call me ancient. Call me ancient. Call me the soul of a griot. Call me Gilgamesh or Babylon. Call me a hanging garden. Call me out. Call me Ra. Call me Ra. Call me Amen. Ta. Call me holy. Call me a time capsule. Call me a roar of waves, a playwright, the baying of a whale, a growl of a saxophone. Yes, I'm no name in the street. Just delete me from your email. Non-existent. Yes, charismatic, a tectonic plate that may be reactive. Call me ashen, clay and dust and clay and May and June, the sunshine. Yes, Evelyn Fox Keller, I am a bellwether, late September moon, a croon of Charlie Parker. Yes, Birdland Evelyn, I am fair weather and partly cloudy, but fair. The heavens, how about the third heavens? Get out of my Milky Way, nebulous, supercumulus. Yes, call me a taste of leavened bread. Yes, a taste of leavened bread instead. No name, no brand. Stand among the muses, no name. Call me, box me. No name in the street. Bent up, beat down, a new crucifix. I want to be Carolina Vermilion. I want to be a peel box. I think too much. I have too much feeling. I want to be a water wheel. A water wheel. I want to be Rumi's water hydrant. Yes, a water wheel. Miles of cherry blossoms, cotton white. A little light in night. A road marker, a traffic light. The late purple in a backyard. Call me no name. Call me no name, no brand, no agenda, no motive, no purpose. Just be, just be. Dear mother, I spoke with my mother this morning, and I had not spoken to her before my birthday. My concern was the hurricane, Hurricane Matthew with its cyclotic wind, and all I had was the picture in my mind of some free newspaper depicting the hurricane as a monster with eyes and teeth. The hurricane had been personified by name and feature. His name was Matthew, a big burly man in some kind of hammerjack chopping down trees, who etched the Caribbean green into small cloud, into dust to dust. Roofs became schooners, became criminals being released from its penitentiary of turbulence. The animals disappear after the monsoon, after the levees broke, after Crater Lake dissolves into an empty fishbowl. Nature knows its evolution. The Appalachian Mountains beneath the water, beneath Florida, the sunken doubloons, the submarines buried off the coast of Bermuda. It scoops up the deeper deep. 900,000 species are unrecorded. So we do not live in Earth alone, although we can be selfish. In California, I walked into a puddle of tar near Topanga Canyon, and I had to have my feet washed and chipped by the physicians. Dear mother, in California, the physicians rubbed my feet in baby oil and began to chip away the tar away. I felt like an Amazon, a nude woman with missing extremities. Her fingers were missing, maybe just a reliquary, lost to elegy, chipped like a nude crucifix, chipped away from what I felt and what I see. The environmentalists had to wash the covered bodies of animals in dish detergent. They became, oh, Earth, said Rilke. So I promise, for those that have no controls over their bodies, home is homemade, not peat, not concrete, not a skyscraper, not tapers of buildings and construction with big lights. My home is midnight. Dear mother, oh Earth, I praise to be able to see in the dark the grinning moon, the 900,000 animals left in the kitchen of the earth. Home is abolitionist geographies. The mammals do not need to come up for air like us with our chain smoked bodies. There are lairs beneath ocean and lake, cracks of glaciers that have them. 10,000 lakes make Antarctica. Portal me in longitude and latitude. I want to sail home in poetic cartography. I want to be a conquistador, the ones who miss, secure, and manicure and claim and inherit. But this is peril. This is perish. This is tarish. This is for sale. When I think of home, I think of stolen legacy. Beg them to be free. Mom, dear mom, the hurricane could be incendiary, a bevy of drunken boats as the hurricane gloats, as the wind asphyxiates the air crescendos, as it drips off God's tongue from the upper atmosphere, from the stratosphere, from the stair of heavens, a heaven that waves romanticize, but have not realized that God is the Mississippi, and God is a broken levee, the God Almighty that shouts and praises of a supernova and Milky Way, the historic God of the infinite atmosphere, God that crams the fisheries and hatcheries. I'm just an animal without territory. Dear mom, I hid behind enclosure, behind parasol and parapet, the God of my wet dreams. Soon I will be done. Soon I will be done. This God who you call God, this be within me, that he that formed me, the he and the she, this mother father God has come back in my chromosome. He has taken no fly zone. Denver, Colorado, 2017. As soon as I moved to the West, I knew I would be infinite. The plane took me beyond the Appalachians, top gallant to the Rockies, to an elevation of 10,000 feet, in search of the light, in search of my sight. And who will dictate Earth, living in this dearth of dilapidation? I am a stranded archipelago east, meeting the West as I make this ascension to climb, to rhyme up there. It was the smell that brought me there, way up in the atmosphere. I had to catch up with my breathing like I had to catch up with my reading. I felt so supercumulus and nebulous. Even the snow pellet felt like miniature asteroids. It was that smell that brought me there. I wanted to collect all the muses. I wanted to use them as heavenly bodies. I wanted to remove all this stodginess and this rule of the ungodly way up there in the smell of the atmosphere. The mountains began to sound quain that baptized me in a latter rain, and I stood on the rampart as fortresses, and it moved like precipitative forces. It was that smell that brought me there. There was clashes of day and night, and I began to see beyond my eyesight. It was that smell. And who will dictate earth with this attitude of mirth? Who knows the moment of a story with big, bold, nickel gray and mackerel sky? As I tried to elevate higher and higher, I began to rub sage and wild lavender and nasal my way to eucalyptus and oleander. It was so much rock and so much river. The scene became a life giver. The earth began to birth me. The earth began to deliver me. And I said, Frisco, Frisco, let me go. But it was that smell that brought me there. It made the muses appear. I wanted to feel planetary. My head flew off like an aviary. I became a poetic space. Up, up, further up, top up there, the mist, the rain, it refrained the tree, the rock, this levee, this gully, this reservoir. This is more Milky Way, more Milky Way. Get out of my way. And who will dictate earth? Who will make mulch out of the divine? And if God has a form, then allow me to be reborn. I'm miles to go. This precipitation is medicinal. It has philology, it has vision and trance, it romance with the aspen tree. The aspen tree lives in a real family. It has cosmology. The earth is a philosophy. The midnight is my light. The pitch black was sight. I could see in the dark far beyond my formless self. All I need to do was hydrate before I make another storm, before I become a new form. And the landscape metamorphosized me. So I will anthologize her as she and I bent her curves, and I had the urge to smell. I had to bike and trail. I had to folk tale. That smell brought me there, way up in the atmosphere. I had no reason to be grounded after disgracing all the fountains there, way up there, where, there, up there in the atmosphere. "14th Street. I saw her on the corner of East 14th. It so happened to the door open at the bank, and she came out. The woman I knew 10 years ago. She asked me to remind her of my name. And I said, Robert. And she said, Robert Gibbons. I said, yes. She said, Robert, I need help crossing the street. The street became the unknown, the beat of 1,000 feet pounding the construction. It was only a New York production of a street where the weather had changed. We had all checked ourselves of layers beneath the foyer of a building. And once she was a professor at Baruch or the New School, one of those schools who petitioned her students to write, but I was not her student, only a passerby, only a drive-by relationship 10 years ago at a literary event, a reading where poets and writers congregate and drink cheap wine from plastic cups, where the hiccups are iambic, keeping time until we're lost in our own self-regard. She said, Robert, I hear voices. I am bipolar. The city is full of 8 million, so we all hear voices. I look up at the Salvation Army, full of satin Mary. The facade of mercy, the perjury of getting old in a place so cold. She carried those bags in effigy from her body like a coat. That woman I crossed 14th Street, her body spackled by an oversized red jacket, and she was talking to herself as we crossed the street. And we crossed this schizophrenic unknown between sanity and eccentricity. And I wanted to help her. I wanted to feel sorry for her, but I was not her social worker, only a barrier between her and the elements. And she loved Michael Feinstein, and she loved the opera and the libretto and Josephine Baker, but she heard voices. The city street had no mercy for her kind of person. She walked in a crutch with cane, the fast moving lane of this circa, and she was a barrier to what we call normal. And I became impatient with this kind of irrational. And there were multiple conversations, the block of ambulance, and the people watch us as odd. But I tried to endure the fog of my own person. I tried to direct her across the street, impatient people without weight, without mercy. And she was the only person I heard, the only person with nerves of electric wires that run above the buildings. And I knew because of the breakdown. I knew her before the breakdown, before the loss of facility. And she tilted like a leaning building the last time I saw her. And she was having a hip replacement. Two knees had failed. Keep in this city that is cold when age becomes old, and we all hear voices. For some, many causes to stop and recognize the condition with our premonition to be guarded. She told me to call the police or Maimonides or the hospital that cared for her. So I called Lawrence, and there was no answer. So I began to remember her. I think I'll do just one more if that's okay with this journal. Inner light. That morning I heard a voice in the dark. I had rose like the morning glory. The night was a sort of blind orange, a blood orange sangria. And I remember my childhood when we would tunnel beyond the Florida border over into Georgia near Tallahassee, near Adipogas, near Two Eggs, when we would beg our grandmother to stop. We knew about the light, but not about the inner light. The road was long from the Everglades to the top of the state. It would be late when we arrived, and we tried to get there before she died. We tried to get there before my great grandmother transitioned into the light. And she was my great grandmother, Minnie. And she had a mother, Emma. And she had a mother, Delia. And she had a mother, Liza. See, unlike some people, no, I can go back 7 generations. I can fly back to the light, to the inner light. And I am transmigrated back. And I wanted to archive this. I wanted to remember this. My grandmother kept buffalo nickels and mason jars and pickle preserves. And she took me to the grave of our ancestors, and she encouraged and tutored me in the names and the stories and the folk tales. And she sung ancient songs to me. She made me believe. And somehow this comes back. And somehow this makes me free. She would rub me down in aloe, and we did not have many ailments. And this is the light. This is the inner light pressed in the middle of my hand when you can conquer the land. I mean, friendliness towards nature, to be honest with patience. And this is light, this is inner light, and this is the beginning, and this is a spring cleaning, and this is the way I can fly, and this is the way I transmigrate beyond the borders of Beulah, South Carolina, across the borders over into South Carolina. And this is about Mother Earth, and this is about dirt and ash and clay and May and day. The color of mestizo red and yellow has a place in my continuum, and I hear these voices in the breath of the wind, in the death of kinship, not Mother Earth twice, but 4 score, but 7 times 7, a number. And if you can remember birth, then you can believe in life, that remember existence as old as pestilence. Mother remembers plague, and she remembers plague and Mother Holocaust, and Mother remembers human traffic across the Bering Straits. When we take it, what it is ours. It's the power of the shakedown, just like the cherry blossoms. I'll end there. Thank you so much for having me.
Robert, that was wonderful. Now you say you're reading from a journal? Robert, can you hear me? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah,
okay.
yes, I can hear
there you
you.
go.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
So is that a new book you're working
on? It's some work that I've never read before in public, and I was, trying to experiment with some forms that I've been working on.
Okay, what forms are you been experimenting with?
I'm the Zuhitsu, which is you and I had that class with Cheryl Boyce Taylor, and
right.
So I'm trying to experiment with writings of Rumi and Zora, and combining it with my own journal entries and trying to create this other kind of composition. It's bigger than poetry. I don't know what to call it. Maybe prose poetry, I don't know, but it's kind of the list and definitions and things like that. Yeah, so it's a combination of different poetic forms, trying to create some type of composition to come up with some newer work.
Oh, it sounds really wonderful. I can't wait to see it when it gets in print, and we're putting that out there in the universe so that it'll get there and it will get into print so everybody can experience it.
Thank you so much.
Yes. I know, I know you're from Florida. And I know that even in this writing that you're doing now, it's almost as if you have a spirit that's really grounded in the earth.
Thank you.
And it keeps you feeling, it's almost like a homecoming.
Thank you.
Type of vibe that I get from the work. So I know you've read a lot of Zora Neale Hurston. Yes. I've read some Zora myself.
Right.
It seems to be a big influence to you for your writing.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. But you're also influenced by Langston Hughes, aren't you?
Yes, which also, which they were friends during the Harlem Renaissance, which I really, Langston has a different type of appeal to me. He is like, he recognizes where he's from, and I connect with him on the short compressed lines that he does, or his appeal to his grandmother Mary Langston, or his uncle John Langston, or his mother Carrie. So there's so many. They're so interrelated, but they're kind of different too in their different appeals to me. Zora is my homegirl. She's from Florida, but Langston is my homeboy because we just connect on another historical level, if you get what I'm saying. But they do come together with me, inside me, in some way. Yeah.
And I know, because I know how you worked over the years. I know you work with musicians sometimes. So
right.
Not only do you have the Zora and you have the Langston, there's also this bluesy jazz that works its way into your work. And let me start, because people used to ask me this question. Are you consciously putting the music in, or is it something that's just so innate it just comes out?
That's such a great question, EJ, because preparing for this reading, I heard bluesy songs, and I almost thought about, and I said, I don't want to sing this song tonight, but it kept, this one kind of rhythm, this kind of southern rhythm kept coming up in this work. And I've never read this work in public. This is the first time, and I know what I need to do to compress it and take away and add to it. But I do hear the song beneath this work. And I only heard it tonight, actually, when I started reading it. Yeah. So I do hear what you're saying in my head. In
your head you hear it.
Okay. Yeah, I hear it. Yeah.
I've written some work that that I had given out. I took a workshop once, right. Manuscript workshop, and I gave the work out, and I never really, I can read my stuff back, and I know that people say that there's a music in there. Yeah. But the music it's just there, you know. But when somebody actually who didn't know me actually read the work on page and had never heard me read and came back and said,
Right.
They basically said to me, I read it out loud to see if I was really hearing the music that I thought I was reading.
Right.
And that's what that piece reminds me of. There's a great deal of the blues, jazzy music in the piece.
Right.
And all of that mixed with your Langston connection and your Zora connection, it's really it could really be a massive work that does something that a lot of poetry doesn't do.
Thank you. I appreciate that, because I was really taking a chance with this, you know, because I could just download my poems and, you know, have them together. But I took a chance tonight with experimenting with this piece. And, you know, I was like, okay, so I'm going to string these pieces along and just, you know, see what happens here. And that's what I did. I experimented tonight. Yeah.
Well, that's good. You know, that's a high form. That's a high form. You know, that improvisational part where you're stringing them along. You're not really taking a break in between.
Right.
And how do you blend that together?
Exactly. That's what I
And
was
keep
worried
it
about. I
going.
was like, oh my goodness. Oh, but I did want to read that piece about me and that lady crossing that street. So I wanted to throw that piece in. I wanted to put her in there. I wanted to remember her tonight, you know. And so it was difficult, but I think it just moved along with the train to me.
Yeah. You know, I see in this particular work, I see a very strong homage to the feminine power.
Yes.
In your life.
Yes.
Do you see the work bringing in some of the you know, masculine power, you know, from men that you know, your father,
yes.
your
Yes.
brothers, whatever,
yes.
that you
yes.
had in your life?
Right.
That how that, you know, you could, if you contemplating bringing that power into it and see
yes.
what happens with that, because that could be a very interesting mix also.
Exactly. Yes. I do have work that reflects that energy. So you know, just like I said, this is my first time experimenting with this journal and this group of work. So it was just like I'm trying to figure out how it's going to evolve on its own and move beyond me just reading it for the stage. You know, if it's
Well, do you see it as a stage piece? In addition to a poetry book, a hybrid poetry book.
I've never even seen it as that. I've just always seen this work as, you know, a combination of journal entries of things that I look at, I've written down in the past, and just like, okay, I don't know what to do with this. You know, I don't know what to do with Rumi's water wheel. I don't know what to do with these thoughts about nature, my obsession with nature, and then my obsession with Zora and Langston and just nature in general, you know. So yeah.
Because it could be interesting. This could be a multimedia piece. I'm kind of leaning toward, you know, Sekou Sundiata's last major work was a multimedia piece.
I love
it.
It
Included music and visuals and everything.
Right.
And I could see this becoming something along that line.
I appreciate you saying that, because
so maybe you might want to start thinking, you might, you know, I mean, get it written, but then you might want to start thinking, well, if I did want to put musicians with this, who would I ask? Right. What instruments am I hearing?
Right, exactly. And not just that, you know, I was accused of being one of these poets that live within the past. And that person only heard a few of my poems and just never knew my other work. And so this also is a reflection of that. You know, this is a reflection that I am not a poet of the past. I am a poet that loves the past, love reflecting on the past, and that comes up in this work, but I'm not a poet that's hung in the past, if you understand. That I think that this work goes beyond just the past. It has tendencies towards the past. It has historic past references, but it is definitely not poetry of the past.
Right.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with being a poet hinged in the past, because I mean
Well,
that, you know, there's a griot aspect to that a lot of people miss out on because they're not really listening. You can't really know where you're going on a future if you don't really know something about your past. So, you know, let me open it up. If anybody has a question for Robert out there, you know, you can unmute yourself and go right ahead and ask. Abby, I see you're unmuted. Oh, you're on your, oh, I see you're on your,
Okay, can you hear me?
yeah,
Okay,
now we can hear you.
my headphones, you wouldn't be able to hear me.
Right.
I just wanted to say how this was, I was just, before I came on to listen to Robert, and Robert, your poet, this is the first time I've heard you read your poetry, and it's just brilliant. I just really am really touched, very much moved greatly. I was rumming through actually um, right before today. I was looking through my illustrated roomie I have on my shelf here in Vermont, and it's and so I was really moved by your references to him, and um, I I just want to say that I'm really really brilliant work, and I look forward to seeing. And also I see in terms of multimedia, I see your narration over very moving pictures, you know, visuals, film.
thank
Yeah,
you so much. I appreciate that.
yeah.
I appreciate your
And
compliment.
I saw that little old lady walking across the street. I was there. I was
Thank
there.
you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I
Thank
appreciate
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You have any more comments, questions? Feel free, speak up.
Robert, is that really your how you write in your journal? I mean, or do you write them and then you put them in your journal after?
No, this is, yeah, basically, my journals are works of art. So it's almost like, they have to be in color, or I have to write the prompt, and then, I'll put pictures or colors per day, or, it's like that. And so all my journals, and I have over 200 of them, they are works of art. They're almost art pieces within themselves. Yeah. And I like the dollar composition notebook. So that's, yeah. And they all have
Get a little
names, they
marble
all have
notebook.
energy, they all have names, they all have energy, they all have their own life, they're dated and all those kinds of things. And whether I can begin, when I started this many years ago, it was like, okay, so how are you going to preserve all these journals, all these dollar composition notebooks? So I started wrapping them in preservation paper, and some of them, like this one, have become very, very fragile. And so it's like, but again, some of the work that's written in there even makes me weep, and EJ. Some of the work I cry over, when I go back and read it, I cry too. So, I weep over it. I hate to say that to the public, but I do. I cry. I was like, oh, I wrote that. Yeah.
Well, that's you gave us you just gave us a tip. Those of us who write in journals, who actually buy journals and write in them.
Right. Different
Keeping
energy.
them in archival paper. Another good thing is if you do photographs, actual photographs, you can go. You could buy a archival box that you could just put, and then you could put your work in the box and close it up, and that would keep it from disintegrating over the years.
Oh yeah.
But that's a good hint that you gave about wrapping it in archival paper. I have to remember that since I do write in journals.
Yeah. Yes, yes.
You know, I mean, I don't know about you, Robert, but when I write in a journal, it's a different feeling than if I'm creating a poem on a keyboard.
Well, that's what
With
the researchers
on
say, right? They say that writing by hand is a different energy. You know,
right.
is a connection between the hand and the paper as opposed to write on the computer. You know, that's not the same energy. And I
No,
know the difference because it doesn't come out the same for me this way. Although this is what I have to do in order to get things out quickly, you know, this is not the same energy as me taking time to write on a piece of paper.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that same thing too. I rather write it out first in the journal.
Right.
I rather feel the paper and the weight of the pen. I
Yes.
mean, I have all kinds of pens, you
Yes.
know,
Me
all
too.
kinds of pens to write with, all kinds of
Me.
colors and whatnot,
Oh, yeah,
you
me
know,
too.
and I write in the journal and it definitely gives it a different, it's a more organic,
Yes, it is.
it's a
Yes, it is.
more organic way of creating the
Yeah.
writing. So anybody else out there have any comments, questions? Come on.
Oh, this is Jackie. Hi,
Hey,
everybody.
Jackie.
Hi,
Yeah,
Jackie. Hi.
hi. Thank you for a fine reading, Robert. Um, I just wanted to chime in on the archival stuff. I've been using archival boxes for about 10, 15 years. And largely I use them for rare books or chapbooks and things. But I like the idea of I don't have 200 journals. Maybe I have 75 to 100, but I've never thought to treat them in an archival way. So I think that's an interesting idea that you have and that you're working with.
Thank you, Jackie. It's always a pleasure to hear your voice, and of course, I love you and I love your work. I just wanted to say the reason this came up is because a few years ago I went to the New York Public Library and I saw that they had preserved the toilet tissue of Jack Kerouac. And of course, if you know the story of Jack Kerouac, you know that he wrote some of his poems on toilet tissue. And
Ah,
so the toilet tissue was preserved and it was in its original condition. It was not brittle. It was in preservation mint condition. And I was like, how can they do this? Jack Kerouac must have lived like in the 60s or something like that. You know, but that toilet tissue was, and he wrote these poems with Ginsberg and Corso and all of the beat and Kaufman and all these people that he hung out with and wrote these poems on toilet tissue. And the New York Public Library had it on display. I went to the exhibit.
Right.
mm,
It's kind of funny because um I don't have super expensive journals, maybe like five, but the rest are pretty. I get a lot of my stuff from art shops. So the quality of the paper is better than average. So I don't see the kind of deterioration, but yeah, I'm not interested in toilet paper, but anyhow. But thank you for a fine reading.
great. So if there aren't any other questions, let's see what time it is. We want to thank Robert for a wonderful afternoon of poetry. And Robert, do you have a website? You have a website, right?
I do not. So unfortunately,
Oh,
I'm working on that technological what can I say? Intimidation that I have.
there you go,
I am
Robert. Because
intimidated.
I'm intimidated too. I had a website. I got to do a
I
new
want
one.
to
I'm
admit that to
intimidated.
the world, that I know I need to raise up a little bit when it comes to technology. I don't quite have it together because I want to get you all a beautiful background. Like some people have the beautiful backgrounds and landscape. I wanted to put a asteroid behind me or something. But I was like, I don't know how to do that yet. I'm still trying to learn. So, but EJ, I've really learned to, seek out help when it comes to technology. I am older. I'm sometimes I'm ashamed of, oh, bro, I don't know how to do that, but asking people in a nice way, there are people out there in the world that will help you. And
Yes,
and oftentimes when you say, well, I want to Google how to do this, you don't always you can always put the dots together. And so
right.
trying to sit up here and try to build a Google Classroom, or I taught a poetry class in Poughkeepsie High School for National Poetry. They had been wanting me there for 3 years, and so finally they got me there for National Poetry Month this year. So I went up, I did the online classroom and stuff, and none of the students, they didn't have to turn their cameras on, and I didn't understand that. I was like, well, I'm sitting here reading, and I want to hear from the class. I want y'all to read. I want y'all to write sonnets and villanelles and stuff like that. But nobody, I didn't know how else to get across besides using my voice, get across to these students the importance of my created lesson plans that I had handwritten in a journal for them. So
Technology. So we want to thank you. And Robert, didn't you have a book? You have a book out, right? Or
I
two
do. I
books.
have.
You have two books now, right?
Yeah. She of course, I love Amy, and thank you so much, Amy, for the collaboration with Some Little Words. I just want to say that Amy and I have decided that project is over. That book has totally sold out. But Amy and I do have we do have there are still, Amy created some beautiful art that goes along with that book. So every piece of that art that's in that book, and I hand wrote the poems on there. So we still have some of those left. So you can definitely go to www.amywilliamsstudio.org to check the ones up. But I do have copies of Flight left. Publisher Roxanne handed me a few copies yesterday. So Flight is my second book, actually, that came out in 2019. It is my graduate thesis. I wrote this manuscript in grad school, and City College, shout out to City College. They really loved this manuscript, and so they wanted it published. Even the City College president published he's published the Sestina that's in here in the university's in his university journal, the president of City College. So he really liked that manuscript because he was an English professor at one time, Dr. Boudreau of City College. So we had a whole reading. Of course, I won the highest award in poetry because of this manuscript at City College, and it's just a great labor of love. And also, this cover just so happened to be created by the famous, celebrated New York poet Stephen Delachinsky, and Delachinsky created this original work of art before he transitioned and went with the ancestors. So he's no longer here, but he had a chance to read this book. And for anybody that are interested, and I do want to just shout out before I go, EJ, for the people at My Voice, please give to One Breath Rising. They do a lot in the community. I cannot not mention my good friend Darryl Allardyce. He was the one that introduced me to One Breath Rising years ago, and I miss him too. And please donate, give back, support One Breath Rising. If you're interested in the book, you can just reach out to me, and I do have copies left of this book. And thank you.
Thank you. Roxanne, unmute yourself. Roxanne, tell us about your press.
Oh, we've been lucky, been around since 2006, and the first person we published was Brett Lyon. He's actually one of the trio that ran this press. I ran this press with Brett and my late husband Herb, and we continue to run it. I run it with Jack Cooper, and we got another book of Robert's coming out, which Robert didn't mention. We've got a book.
Holding out on us, huh, Robert?
I'm gonna let Robert tell you all about it, but we just nominated it for the inaugural Maya Angelou Award.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Fantastic book.
So, Robert, what year is the book coming out? 2022, 2023, what? The end of 2021?
Yeah, we'll say early next year, the book will come out.
Okay, we'll be looking forward to getting that one. You know, Robert writes some great stuff, people. So, you know, anytime you can get a hand on one of Robert's books or one of Robert's poems, you're in for a real treat. You're in for a real treat. Okay, Joy, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I want to thank everyone that signed in and joined this Zoom reading today. And I'm on the board of One Breath Rising, as is Abby London and Rick Brown and Joy Rosenthal and Joanne McFarland. And we want, we're closing out our season. Our season ends with our June reading, but we will definitely be back in September. And I'm going to turn it back over to Joy, and she'll thank our sponsors. And if you can, please donate to One Breath Rising.
Thank you, EJ. And now I have to come up with the list of the sponsors. It's getting to be a little long, so that's a wonderful problem to have. Well, we have the Garner Glazer Fund and the Berger Family Foundation and Park Slope Civic Council and poets and writers, and of course our individual donors. So as EJ said, this is our last reading or performance for the summer, but please get on our email list at onebreathrising.org so we can stay in touch. And we've got some great stuff lined up for the fall. So we'll see everybody soon. And Robert, thank you again. It was really fabulous. Really, our motto is world-class artistry in an intimate setting, and that certainly is what we had today. So thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon.